My name is Maksimas Milta. I will moderate today's event, and I'll introduce, of course, my counterpart today. But before we do that, I'd like to acknowledge that it's a privilege for us that today we have Excellencies Consuls Generals of Lithuania, Mr. Vasyl Šalkauskas, and Consul General of Ukraine, Oleksiy Golubov, who are joining us for this conversation. And for that reason, I'd like to give the floor first to Mr. Golubov to say a few words to all of you, dear participants of today's event. Consul General.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me tonight. I will try to be as brief as possible. Just a few thanks to all of you, thanking to whom today's or tonight's event happened. It is very important, and I wish to thank Scandinavia House, of course, for hosting this event. Of course, thank New York Baltic Film Festival, and thank our friends and colleagues, definitely from Lithuanian Consulate General, for making possible insertion of this film, MARIUPOLIS 2, to the program of New York Baltic Film Festival. It is a very important tool, and I wish to thank film makers, your team. We are mourning with you on your loss of Mantas Kvedaravičius. It is our moral duty to make this film as oftenly screened as possible, because it is a very important tool. War has many faces, war produces many pictures, and what we saw tonight, it is one another proof of how today's war, horrific in its scale and character, brought to Ukrainian land by Moscow, Putin's regime, how it is unjustifiable and to what extent it is barbaric. To a very large extent, Russian-speaking city Mariupol was practically ruined. We do not know for so far how many lives we lost there. Some experts say about 100,000. People are not even recovered from the ruins of multi-story buildings, their bodies. What was behind the silly head of Kremlin leader when he proclaimed intention to combat Nazism and save Russian-speaking population? We all have seen this on the screen. Anticipation of death or anticipation of pain, worse, the death or pain itself. We just saw this through the camera, through the distant but very painful smokes rising up over the ruined and bombed, not far located regions of Mariupol. So a small community with their intention to support each other and still fear, not very deep, but still fear that they might come. That is why they are thinking about their parishioners and just those who joined the parish for the idea to be secured, but anticipation of those barbarians coming move the priest for the very difficult decision to advise them to leave the parish, to leave the church, and find on their own luck places around. War still continues. Russian barbaric methods are becoming more and more inhuman. Today, half of Ukraine is without electricity, without water, without gas. We need to spread the word of truth as widely as possible with the whole world to understand what is the scale of evil Ukrainians stand against. Stand against with the whole world, with our partners and friends. We're truly thankful for your support and for your solidarity. Cordially, from the very bottom of our hearts. But we still need more. We need more in weaponry, we need more in financial support, we need more in your attentions to rebuild country, to renew energy grid right now, for so far. Documentary films is a very important and a very powerful tool that leaves no one without emotions after screening. Let us do together. Let us bring this film further on the American continent and other parts of the world. Let us inspire our partners to do more. Because we are fighting not just for Ukrainian land, not just for Ukrainian cities, not just for our beloved. We are fighting for the principles and values you taught us to respect, and we do. Thank you very much. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you, Your Excellency. We're about to start a really complicated conversation. And naturally, after watching a movie like MARIUPOLIS 2, which right now has been a US premiere here under the premises of the Scandinavia House in New York City, it's impossible to ignore the scale of atrocities and the scale of crimes that have been committed every day and night starting February 24th. Yet at the very same time, what we'd like to have today as a part of this conversation is to discuss the legacy of a talented artist, of a true man of renaissance in the categories 21st century, Mantas Kvedaravičius, who was way more than only a director, way more only than just a scholar, anthropologist, archaeologist, and historian, but someone who was able to identify the language and the method of articulating what's been happening both in Mariupol and many other places around the world, where the crimes and atrocities and the heroism of human spirit were demonstrated. Even more importantly, what I believe MARIUPOLIS 2 is a movie about. It's a movie about what does it mean to be a human being. So these are the topics that I'd like to talk with you today about. I'd like also to acknowledge the fact that Uliana Kim, who is a producer of the movie, is joining us today for this conversation. And of course, Hanna Bilobrova, not only partner and collaborator, but also co-director of MARIUPOLIS 2, will help us today understand and approximate, to bring us closer to what was happening on the ground in March 2022, even less than a year ago, what we've just watched on the screen. So the format of this conversation will be as follows. Hanna and I will talk about a number of topics. We'll talk about the human condition that we have just witnessed on the screen. We'll talk about the idea of home and the role it plays for people in Mariupol and Ukraine. We'll talk also about the idea of solidarity that all the members of the parish have expressed and demonstrated, expressed not only verbally, but performatively. And last but not the least, of course, we'll have questions and answers with you. And I'd like to hear from you your response, your reaction. How did you receive this brilliant documentary that we just witnessed? Hanna, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hanna, this is a movie about the human condition. And of course, Mantas had the ability to show us not only the depth of interaction with human beings, and of course as an anthropologist, for him, human being is at the core of his lens, but also the breadth. Every now and then when the panoramic views were brought there, not only in the end of the movie, but throughout the entire movie, we see this overarching breadth. Now, could you tell us a bit, what is the artistic language? What is the method that Mantas has been using in his works, including in MARIUPOLIS 2, for you as someone who's been his collaborator?
I believe that for us both, I will start why we went there, yes. Because city have been sieged and news have not been reaching us, and we as documentaries, like as humans as well, we knew that there are also people who still alive, and city occupied, and we could not. You live in fear that you don't know what's happening there. So we decided to go and see with our own eyes how we can help, and how to be first of us being human being, the same human being as in Mariupol. And the language of the film, it's a language of people. It's a language of human and humanity. In war zone, especially in this small community, you like in a stage of limbo, where you between the worlds, and people stop to understand what is happening. And first, when we arrived to Mariupol, especially we stopped there, like it was second our stop in this church. First one, we went with humanitarian aid, and this one, the safest, we could not move further. But what touched me with Mantas, we arrived in this basement, and all these old ladies and men and children was like, but what is happening? Everyone forgot about us. And I was confused, and we didn't know what to answer to them. And we are like, no, whole world talking about Mariupol, but people did not believe us. And then I'm like, I didn't know what to say. And then I'm like, no, we arrived, and please believe that all world talking about Mariupol. And then they believed us, because the last news was arriving from some local station with propaganda that whole Ukraine been taken already. And so I could not say that it's special linguistic, of course it is, of the film, but it's also as this conversation with a human. So you are not observing from outside, or we are not just filmmakers, we are not just journalists, but we together with people, and we arrived because of community and because of the people being sieged there. So the development of filming, it was a part of their life in this community, and so it was not it was something when camera becomes as a part of you, but a part of shells and a part of vision, and it's nothing that you observe, but you participate and observe at the same time.
How long did you stay in Mariupol together with Mantas?
Together with Mantas, we stayed up to 7 days. 7 days. And in another 5 days, I stayed without Mantas. With him, but without, because he disappeared, and I've been looking for him.
In this movie, what we've seen has been extremely dense connection between people, between all of the members of that community. And under rationing of food, under lack of any information from the outer world, it is so easy that a conflict can sparkle. It is so easy that aggression would become a norm. We haven't seen a single swear word said in the movie. That would be my, somewhat anticipation, right? I would expect a different language in that movie. Somehow it reads like a literature there, right? Yeah. There were no conflicts among people, members of this community?
Oh, I would not say that it was even a conflict. You saw this conflict when priest was saying that we want you to leave, but it was not as a conflict, but at the same time it was. But when you, in this, it's created family, but not institutionally, but because of community, and when strangers becomes your relative or last friend or last family member. It was not even, which is very interesting for me, it was not any hierarchy system as well. So priest kind of tell that you should leave, but because hierarchy stopped exist, no one would take this as a conflict of some power. And yes, that's how it was, that's how you saw it. So it was not any conflicts except like this, even not a conflict, but...
Of course, a dog stealing a package of butter.
Yeah, that was also conflict, big conflict, because, yeah, and everyone laughing.
Right. But let's hold it for a second and talk about the venue where everything happens, the church. It's extremely symbolical, of course, that all the development happens right in the basement of the church. And in one of the instances in the movie, there is a prayer where the priest says, "Oh Lord, please leave our praise not unanswered. Please answer to our prayers," right? So God-fearfulness clearly is one of the red lines there. But have you seen that development? Have people become more spiritual while experiencing all this week under the shelling? Or on the contrary, maybe they have lost faith in God, which evidently has not been protecting them well. Have you seen the evolvement of this spiritual sense of, immersion that members of the parish have demonstrated?
From my perspective, everyone became spiritual on your, like, even it's not spiritual, but you know that the God exists, but it's existence and unexistence of the God. So you still know that you would go to bring some water, and it might be the last your walk. So, and it's matter, and at the same time does not matter. Are you praying or not? So it's also this stage when people already abandoned by goddess, but they have each other as goddess too. So you become both, but in your soul, I believe. So it was not that everyone would start to pray, Right. But at the same time, everyone would hold their breath when prayer would be pronounced.
Exactly. This is what I witnessed when the sermon was taking place, and it's very informal, of course, under those conditions of suddenly someone would say, "Shh, there is a prayer," right? Yeah. And in his last interview, one of the German philosophers, Martin Heidegger, he was asked who could save humanity, and he said, "Only a God can save us. Nur noch ein Gott kann uns retten." And this idea that only a God can save you under such dire constraints as the war and shelling, as bloody, as aggressive as it is, among those people, in that last moment when the priest tells us, "Now you should leave," have you heard the response of these people? Who could save them? Are they now to save them themselves, or were they expecting that someone else would save them? Do you remember that exact moment? How did it feel right then?
Yeah, I remember that moment when people was, everyone would understand that where you can also find a God who would save you, because even if being in church, the God could not protect you to be saved, so where you should look for him, because how everything just destroyed. So if God not here, so where?
An idea of home clearly is one of important lines of the whole narration there. We see, I believe, Kola and his pigeons, right? And absence of any home. And he says, for 32 years I've been working and now I'm here in this poverty. The issue of a home and aspiration to find a home, isn't it also something that Mantas has been doing in his artistic work, trying to find a home through bringing him to the place where people under such constraint, where such trauma and tragedy is helping? This idea of finding home, was it only about those people that are depicted in the movie, or also was it about the director of the movie, Mantas?
I believe it's found your own home, and your home where you are, yes, but at the same time we are looking for home all our life, even without having this home or been taken. But for Mantas, like, was important how people still have like home without having home in such conditions, and still believe and prize alive. So that was the main, what Mantas was looking, even not looking, but just being there as part of people without home. But yeah.
You come from east of Ukraine, right?
Right.
You are a native of Luhansk.
Lugansk area, yeah.
Did it feel different in Mariupol compared to your experience in Luhansk?
No, not different.
Not different.
No, because it's in Donetsk region, and I know this region very well. Even it.
And the idea of home for you there in Mariupol, did it feel like home there under that dire constraint, or it felt alien for you?
No, it's just, yes, I feel that it's my region, like, yeah, that it's part of me. It's like not, yeah, it's home because it's part of me. I from the same community. I know these details, how, like, I'm local there. And yeah, for me, it was like, yeah, it's who I am as well.
When Consul General was addressing the audience here, he said that he wishes that the movie is broadcasted and shown and premiered across many more places here in the US and internationally. And clearly, this movie, it presents us an idea of memory not only of the suffering of the people there under dire constraint, but also the memory of this horizontal solidarity that you mentioned, right? The absence of any hierarchy when you are in this moment of truth, in a way. When you are now recalling March of 2022, what is the memory that pops up in your mind, something that you cannot forget at all about March 2022 in Mariupol?
That we was value alive, without swear words, without arguing for nothing, without be angry at something casual. For every day we just like like someone like did something, or someone didn't look at me or if someone did not do something. But it's like so, it's not important at all. The place where money stop exist and someone would like ask me for cigarette and it was as a joke. Someone told me, oh, I even can buy. And everyone started to laugh because like money does not make any sense. Like you can put on a fire maybe, but it's not what is value. So we share everything together. Everything that we have, it's our. And also not just our as a people, but also we have animals and we have lack of food, but it's our last porridge, but we would feed pigeons because pigeons also part of community. And it's a bit, it's absurdity of what we are arguing on everyday life. And remembering that, at each moment I try to recall, even not to recall, but like return to March, and I'm like, what is important? Not this everyday arguing of what is,
It's of course impossible to ignore the fact that the movie has been filmed under the condition of the war. And there are different wars, right? Wars are unfortunately as common to the history of humanity as anything else. Probably there were more instances of war in the history of humanity than instances of peace. And yet there are wars that are notorious and as aggressive, as bloody as the now ongoing war run by Russia in Ukraine. What I'm interested to hear from you is this idea of banality of war that we see there. How war becomes a condition of day-to-day life, which you can see in Mariupol. Something absolutely inevitable. And suddenly we see this community in the parish, a community in the church, recognizing that, yes, there is no way out. The war is out there. And you would expect people losing their minds. You would expect people going mad and crazy about that, realizing that you have no agency in this war. You cannot stop it. It will only be torture and blood and ultimate death. Have you seen this change in psychology of the people? You've spent a week there. How did the psychology of people change in regards to acknowledging the war that is happening and getting closer and closer and closer to them?
It's not acknowledgement. It's where death suit into your life. So it's part of the life as well. And you can't do nothing, and you have to concentrate, and everyone was concentrating on value of life and each second and pricelessness of life. And it's, you mentioned that how people didn't become mad. Maybe everyone there was mad, but you're in that brain condition where you like fight for what, with whom, and you're here and you don't know, you just like feed pigeons and laugh and like, okay, at least it's sunny today. And first time maybe, I don't know how many times per day you like look at the sky and notice, is it sunny? And there you, at least it's sunny. And it's also somehow madness, yes, because it's not like standard way that we would think that people would react in that condition. You would not think that someone would swap a floor, because like it does not make any sense, right? But yeah, Because otherwise we have just bloody pictures, like statistics, and people becomes numbers and statistics. But people do have names, and people do smile. And I remember how I've been told, and I had my imagination of how the war should be. And for me, it was different experience of war. No one told me that. And at the same time where people was shot and dying and we had hunger, but at the same time we swept the floor. No one told me that.
Before we start with questions and answers, there is the last point that I'd like to ask you, Hanna, about. And before I do that, I'd like to express enormous respect for you, because I don't know if I were able to do something like that. What I see and what I understand is that it has, once Mantas was killed by Russians, it has become your mission not only to bring his body back, but also to ensure that his legacy is there. And you worked on this movie, but putting it together, and it was even shown in Cannes Film Festival. It's incredible at which time constraint you worked. Tell us about that.
About Cannes Film Festival?
No,
or
about your
bringing,
mission. About your mission, your realization of that mission.
Our relationship with Mantas was undeniable from work and love. So it was love and work together, like it was one. So when Mantas disappeared, I did have my copy of material that we filmed, but I did not have Mantas. And when I found Mantas' body, and I know that I was not carrying hard drives with me, right? And I knew that, okay, now I have Mantas, but I don't have our work. And it was something you can't leave something behind. You can't, like, it should be together. And I went, light something to militaries, and I went and pick up our material. And then, okay, now it's completed. So I have Mantas and our work. So
we're utmostly grateful, all of us, utmostly grateful to you that you made this work done, that you put it together, and thanks for your work, your courage, and your mission. We're able here not only to discuss and continue supporting Ukraine, but most importantly, that the legacy of Mantas Kvedaravičius is there. Thank you, Hanna, so much for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's have some questions from the audience. It's a good time for you, dear guests, to reflect on the movie that we all have watched together. It is US premiere of MARIUPOLIS 2. Some of you, I believe, may have also watched MARIUPOLIS 1, the first part of it. So please, share with us your reflections, your thoughts, your questions to Hanna, maybe your questions to Uliana as well. Please.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you thanks me, but I want to thank whole team and producer Uliana Kim, who has been working with Mantas for 10 years, yes, Uliana? And she supported me, and we brought this legacy, and we paid respect to Mantas. And it's not only me, but it's whole team, all friends, all colleagues. It would not be possible without all this support and people who cares, who like supported me, because it's kind of harsh to be alone.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Uliana.
Thank you. Thank you. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Mantas, and I wanted to add my thanks for your bravery, without which we wouldn't have this movie. I wanted to ask you about the factory that you see in a lot of the sort of city shots. I just wanted to make sure, is that Azov style, where the final defense of Mariupol happened? And at the time that you were in Mariupol, were the Russians still outside the city? Were they inside? What was the sort of perimeter like? Thank you.
It is Azov style, and Russian was around, actually. 2 times we been almost killed with Mantas together because they was coming to Azov style. So it's we've been mined. You see in that scene on, I don't know if you noticed, but it's scene where we've been mined, our gate's been mined. And then we've been demined, and demined means tank came a bit like it's just, I have footage on my phone, like it's like literally like here, and tank starts to shoot these mines, they exploded with like, are we gonna die now or not, or like, you know, and we've been surrounded. You don't see here in the film that, but it was conditioned, so it was not just somewhere there. It was literally, it's the only church, because like around is everything destroyed. And aviation, you don't know where it's gonna fall, and you could not smoke because it's like shooting happening under your head, and you're crouching and you go down. So it was happening there at the same time, and because it's very close to Azovstal, and also the soldiers been just where we've been shooting from the window downstairs. I have from other perspective shot, and there I didn't notice even being there. So by rewatching footage all over and over again, I'm like recently realized that there are actually like soldiers like fighting, and I'm like, oh, how they didn't notice us with camera. But they've been coming inside, and yes, it was everything happening at the same moment.
Gintarė Bukauskas. I would like to ask about editing, because Mantas left this footage. So did he talk about the vision of how the documentary will look? And then I was looking who were the editors. It was about 4 or 5 people involved. So the question is, was there Mantas's vision, or film is based already on post-mortem on 4 or 5 individuals who carried their own vision, assuming that that is Mantas's vision?
It was, we've been editing with Dunya Sicho. It's Mantas editor. I've been controlling editing, and decision been made by editing table by me and Dunya. We can't be Mantas. Mantas did have his own vision. We have many footage from my phone, and his idea was like to add as more footage from iPhone, so it would not be that like formal as it now. So he had different vision, and his idea was also to combine with footage from first MARIUPOLIS, so which I didn't do. So it's kind of, yeah. He would have his own vision. We can all argue that we think that it's Mantas, but no none from us is Mantas. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah.
Right here, I think you had a question.
Well, first of all, I think you're an inspiration. I admire your courage and your commitment dealing with this difficult, heartbreaking, heartrending situation. I love the way you shot that film. I love the way one was able to enter that world and soak in just the phenomenology of that place and not have something structuring it for one, to see what happened to the city and what happened to the people and just soak that up.
Thank you so much.
And I also want to ask you, I mean, I would think it would be terribly difficult to smuggle that footage out. How were you able to do that? How were you able to preserve this and get it to a place where you could work on it safely?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Thank you. Yeah, it was difficult. I literally hide this footage in my underwear. And I knew that if I would be checked, so I would be killed and Mantas would not reach home. So I tried to be as careful as possible. I was avoiding being checked or being like passing through the border. I even was like kind of stay that not to go through these metal gates, so I won't pee, so no one would check me. But somehow I did it.
Indeed, it is truly heroic. Just the whole logistics of that, you know, logistics of ensuring legacy. This is already something worth writing a book about, and a movie on its own, I believe. Please, more questions, more reflections, more response. Right here, question right here, and then question right there. And please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much for the film. I really enjoyed the first one and was really looking forward to seeing this one. So I was really pleased to be able to see it here tonight. I guess I have so many questions, but I'm really curious about the fate of the people in the church bomb shelter. Do you know what happened to that group of people?
Unfortunately, people before Easter, a priest just made sure that people would go, and I don't know. I know about one family that they remain in Mariupol. Like other people, when we supposed to leave, so we took that two families. One girl with father, her mother been killed on her eyes. So yeah, two family we took from the church, and they are safe now. So volunteer was just to evacuate them. One family from the church remained on Mariupol. I tried to with children that you saw in the film, they are playing, so they remain they're in Mariupol in destroyed house, and they could not get out from there. And where is all these old ladies and men? I don't know. Yeah, even like when I returned, because we left church and we stopped with Mantas in volunteer mother's house, and we spent the night just before leaving. And yeah, so everyone in church thought that we left. And when I came back, so they was surprised that I'm still there, but I told them that because I've been told that probably your husband been killed, but I did not see a body back then. And when I came to the church, one old man who also in film, he passed away. So, but yeah, so it's very complicated, and yeah, most of the people probably there, maybe someone I hope not, but you never know if everyone alive, because even this week changed like -1 person, and they're like, it's each second you don't know.
It's a terrible, terrible tragedy. Please, a question right there. Yeah. Okay, let's have it there and then.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ksenia, and probably I would like to express some reflection on the movie, because I'm originally from Kiev. I spent 25 years of my life, I grew up there. And in Ukraine, for many years, we had this, I don't know, idea of differences between different regions, that there is like Western part, with their own peculiar attitude to life, central part, southeastern Ukraine. But what was the most powerful for me to see in the movie is how close I felt to the people in the church who, no matter what, took care of their place where they lived, that it was well organized, that they maintained the order, that it's clean, there was a structure, there was no crowd like running to get food, like everybody knew that they will be treated equally. And that sense of community, it showed me how, what is Ukrainian nation by itself. And I'm so proud, and I feel that this movie has to be seen not only in the world, but by all Ukrainians, to see how, who we are, truly are, that we are organized and supportive to each other and loving to each other. That, of course, we argue. It's fine, it happens, but it's all about our core. This movie showed our core, and I'm so grateful to you. Really,
Thank you so much.
truly.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I am Lithuanian, from the Lithuanian consulate. So I would rather deliver some reflections, because we were making the MARIUPOLIS first in the early spring, I think in April. And for those who didn't see it, I highly recommend, because I believe we have to see both movies as a block, because the first one was showing the beginning of the war, how people were reacting, how we're making ordinary life and trying to keep to routinity. And the second part, MARIUPOLIS is very hard to see, how it was destroyed. Even that was the beginning of destruction, but now it's absolutely destroyed. So you never know when it could be worse. But if you see that MARIUPOLIS first and MARIUPOLIS second, this one, you will understand that it could be worse, and the limits for the human survival and human abilities to accept the reality are unbelievable. Thank you.
I'll just reiterate that you can watch Mariupolis Part 1 on New York Baltic Film Festival website. You can do it online. It's available, and indeed this is a great time to do that, because the festival is still lasting for another week online, virtually. We have a question right here, I believe.
Thank you. I'm Christina. So as the siege was happening, and I'm watching the news, and I kept thinking, what are people actually eating, right? And what about the water? And what about the toilet situation? And, you know, how did people survive? Yeah, I mean, what were they eating?
Like in church, it was once it was like, so it's absurd. We had black caviar, like ikra.
Caviar.
Yes, caviar. We've been eating black caviar. And everyone was complaining, old ladies, like, what is it? Like, and because like neighbors, like some warehouses been destroyed and military taken some food first, and then some people would like, young men would like, we would have to, them would like bring something, and also in this church was kind of supply of the food because it's church. So, and yes, but at the same time you're eating caviar, and then like you don't have a water, and it's a bit like contradictory, like, and absurd. But other places, and even though we had like plenty of food there, but you don't know where people are, and at some places at the same moment where we eating caviar, people dying from there because they don't have nothing. But because you living in just, you don't know what's happening on the opposite street, you can't move and you can't share, and it's ridiculous. So it was both.
Yeah. One question here, and then the next question right here.
Yeah, so Vitan is my name. Like, my question is that first movie, there was a lots of like move, like, you know, this location, that location was kind of like story, and that's why I forgot I wanted to ask. And here it's like sort of like 100 meters perimeter. Mm-hmm. So why is that? It's like you were not, no, how to say not allowed. You were on your own over there. You just was like just no reason to go, like too dangerous, right? What's that? Why it's just like we see this church from every angle, and like. And everywhere in the background. So basically I see like 200 meters, maybe like, you know, you were walking the camera, and that's it. Why was that? I mean, it's a stupid question, but
no, it's
still
not,
why not like a little bit like...
Because you could not move.
Pardon?
Because you could not move.
Yeah.
Like literally. Like you sometimes even go to toilet, as I've been asked.
Is that dangerous?
It's dangerous because like you don't know, like his mind will fall here, and it's also aviation, and also on a, we could not feed, there are like dog, like through the fence you can see like from the window that it's fence, and there are dog actually on a leash, and we could not even jump through the fence and unsuit the dog or feed, because it's like you can't, because you would be killed. Because you surrounded, you can't move. So that's why even like what we are shooting, we could not move. Like in film, it's like still feels that you like exploring the space, but it was just a moment like, okay, it's a bit, now it's like not that dangerous, but still, so we have this gap to film now. And then in like 10 minutes, even like less, sometimes like 2 minutes, and you interrupt, so you switch off camera and lie on the ground as you, but you can't move, like you could not move at all.
Yeah, because we didn't see in a movie very close shelling, so that's why.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
And another short question, what kind of church was that?
It's Baptist church. Mm-hmm.
And if I may follow up on Vitania's question, I think from an artistic viewpoint, although I'm not well versed in cinematography or directorship, but I believe it's way more complicated actually to make a movie in a closed perimeter of just a few hundred yards where you're located, right? You can't move between different settings, between different venues. An ability to extract a story, extract a storyline and narration in a confined place. This is the true mastery there.
But it's also narration, it's now it's visual narration, and narration being not written by us, but written by Schelling, written by people, and by us being there at this exact moment. Right. So you could not kind of like when Mantas did, like, let's say, first Mariupolis, he had like more opportunity, and the story was not, yeah, it's story inside the story actually. Because here you even though I have some footage when we was coming there, but I did not want to leave this space because it was I still, like, I remember this, my body still remember the feeling that I want you to feel through the film, that how we've been there this week, where time kind of passing, but without passing. So it's like kind of you there and you don't know. Like, so it was not about exploring what happening. It's a bit different story how to be at this mindset, and also how it feels to be and how it feels to be sieged, under the blockade. Yeah.
Thank you. Please.
Again, for this film, it's very, very courageous. I'm Masha, by the way. So my question is, a lot of Ukrainian journalists and Ukrainian journalists have taken a stance to not express any criticisms of the government, like Gardon and Aristovich. And there are some pieces of the film that do express, like the pro-Russian perspective. I'm wondering about your decision and if you were concerned that, that can be cut up by, Skabeva, Tlaibiev, whoever, and put into Russian propaganda, and how that decision was made.
Thank you for the question. As a freelance journalist, yes, and because I'm not working for media, and at the same time as a filmmaker, I have this freedom of expression. And I wanted to, as a journalist, first you have to be free from bias, yes? So you carrying the truth, it's never black or white, but it's in between. It's always in between. So it was like you saw. So why I should hide and tell that, yeah, it's like, yeah, we all know that Russia did invasion on Ukraine, yes, but why I should be repetitive? Because it's fact. And not to repeat, but show what people at that time, at that moment was thinking, actually. Not that we represent them to think. So I wanted to show that even war going on, but people have their own mind and all their own politic view, and for that it's like I don't want to judge people, because it's like, yeah, it's propaganda, or like it's nationalism. It does not matter whom it's belong, right? So by supporting one part of other, I believe that by this decision, I made myself free and not to be repetitive of something that is fact. And my position very clear that, yes, but unfortunately I can't talk about case because it's pre-trial investigation now, and I'm working on investigation of Mantas execution, but it's, yeah, it's, yeah, the truth in between.
Let's have two more questions before we wrap up today, or two more reflections, comments, please, right there.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for the film. It's very powerful, and yeah, your courage, it's very impressive. I wanted to ask about choosing to go to the church. How did you choose the place? And also, how much of the film and the story you planned ahead, and could you follow your plan if you had it? Or was it all like spontaneous choices of what to film? and how to tell the story.
Thank you for the question. Our colleague and friend asked us, but Anna, tell me the truth. The camera was just like excuse for you to go, right? So we was going to people we did not know, we knew, but we at the same time not. So what is there? We didn't have a clue what we're gonna film, even though Mantas wanted like kind of re-edit, as I told, like maybe have some footage, re-edit first, combine with first MARIUPOLIS and so on, but it was more about, yes, going there to see what's happening there. And yeah, what was your second question?
Following the path.
Following the path. Yeah, it was path to nowhere. It was one way, one way to go. It's like, you know, like. I don't know.
Well, my name is Massimo. Thank you for the film, and I'm sorry for your loss. So my question is about it's the scene where the gentleman was talking about the honest government, and I thought that was a very interesting part of the film, and one that stood out in particular. And I was just curious if you could speak to maybe that conversation or maybe similar conversations, because I could imagine that similar ones might have happened off camera. So I would be curious if you have any more thoughts to share about that. Thank you.
Thank you. No, it was like, yeah, when you're there, it's like you don't know who's shooting and whose bomb falling on your head. You know, so the least that you can talk about is just make it like as a joke. Like, so, yeah. So it's like not even particularly on government who is now, but it's just a joke that, yeah, here we are, like, yeah, we're here, but war, we're under the war, so, and people don't know who's like, is it Ukrainian soldiers or Russian soldiers or like, who is shooting, who, yeah, actually you just don't know, and like, you just make a joke. So, and people remembering that what they, like, anecdote they read, and like, yeah, but how many times? Because as you mentioned, yes, it's many wars. No, it's like the same war, but places changing, but narrative the same.
There are two things that I'd like to stress before we finish today. The first is that the bloody regimes like the one in Kremlin that is running this absolutely incomprehensible war and crimes of aggression every day against innocent and peaceful Ukrainians who are protecting their liberty and freedom is only possible because of the impunity that these regimes, like in Kremlin, exercise and experience. Impunity, lack of any responsibility for the crimes, tortures, and aggression that they do. And the way to tackle impunity, the way to address and respond to it is accountability. And there are numerous ways how to do that. There are international investigations like ICC, ICJ. There are things like principle of universal jurisdiction that are also undertaken to exercise investigations when it comes to crimes of torture. And also depicting these stories, showing them, articulating them vividly, countering the Kremlin propaganda and narrative has been spread consistently, not just throughout the months and weeks of this invasion, but throughout decades. This is one of the ways how accountability can also be restored. And I believe this broadly defined political purpose of the movie, purpose that allows us to show what actually has been done by Kremlin in Ukraine. This is extremely important. And now the second point that I'd like to ask you, Hanna, before we finish today. All of us here, we are friends and supporters of Ukraine, no doubt about that. But very few of us actually are Ukrainians. You are one of them. What would you tell to us? How can we support individually or collectively Ukraine today? What you believe is important for us to take as an action? Should we do more fundraising? Should we do more reaching out to our communities? What would you encourage us, friends of Ukraine, to do today to help your country and your people in this fight for freedom and liberty?
I would ask you to focus on humanity and individual. And by helping one, you helping all. And I believe on that.
Hanna, Uliana, entire team of MARIUPOLIS too, thank you very much. We have the very last response.
I'm a volunteer for the Ukrainian Response Initiative. It's an initiative that's sponsored by the New York Mayor's Office, and I'm a volunteer there. I help with career counseling. So it's a $2 million fund that is sponsored by the Mayor's Office of New York City, and it's through the New York Immigration Coalition, NYIC. And part of that is the Ukrainian Response Initiative, URI. So if anybody in the room wants to volunteer and join the volunteer, do talk to me. I'll be here for a few more minutes. I help out on career counseling, meaning the refugees and other members of the Ukrainian communities who are already in New York City. I help them with information that helps them get work. And when I went to the, usually the events happen at New York City public libraries. And in an event last month, a lot of the Ukrainians and the ones who are here on asylum mentioned that they wanted to work and wanted to contribute to the society here and not just have something just given to them. And I found that very heartwarming. And I wanted to help them. And I'm currently working on designing a program where I'm personally in healthcare to see there's a big need in hospitals for a lot of people and see how I can help the Ukrainian community get jobs across hospital systems and all the different jobs there are all kinds of jobs. But it was very, very heartwarming to see that Ukrainians want to work. They don't want to, they are coming here from, all parts of Ukraine. And they have seen a lot of what you've described in this movie, in this documentary. So I wanted to kind of say that if anybody, to your point, if anybody feels like they want to help, I think that this is more powerful. We have all, I believe, and I have also donated financial resources, but I believe that to me, this is more than just a financial donations and things that we do through Raison and other institutions who work with the Ukrainian government. So I just wanted to
Thank you so
that.
much for your support and help, and it's very important that because your focus to help, and then people, of course, want to help as well to you. And it's very human and it's very important because it's exchange. And it's like very inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Once again, I'd like to reiterate gratitude to New York Baltic Film Festival, Scandinavia House that is kindly hosting our discussion and our event, and of course the entire team of MARIUPOLIS too, Uliana, all the members of the crew, and of course you, Hanna. Thank you so much.
And of course, Grażyna, to having us
Absolutely.
and running this festival and hosting all of us. Thank you, Grażyna,
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank you.